time aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. I am sitting at Disney's Port Orleans French Quarter Resort as we record the episode this morning, and because I could not do anything to find a good background, if you are watching on video, you are actually seeing where I will be later today, which is the bridge of Halcyon Star Cruiser. Spending an inordinately large number of Capital One Venture X miles to afford a second and final voyage for our family. And Mr. Kerr has just returned from London again.
Again, yes.
A little jet lag going on over there?
Because I was only there for 46 hours, no.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even attempt to get on that time zone. Even though I was just exhausted when I got home that I slept all the way through the last 2 nights. So no jet lag this go around, just regular exhaustion.
Just regular exhaustion, yes.
Regular exhaustion.
Yeah. As I once said to somebody, and which has become my pat line, I don't have a body clock anymore. I just have an egg timer. Just seems to work better that way. So if you guys are just tuning into the show, you can shoot us emails. ed@pizzainmotion.com is where you find us. I'm going to guess, since you and I have recorded last, that you haven't even thought about Threads. It still exists. I just want you to know. But on social media, you can find him at Kerpoints on all those social media channels. Twitter. Oh, no, sorry, not Twitter. X. Facebook.
I saw that app update this morning, and I was like, oh, they actually did it. This indeed is not a joke. Okay. I'm still calling it Twitter forever, so.
And you can find me at Pizza in Motion when I am not boarding Star Cruiser on all those same places, although I have not logged into Threads since that first time either. You can also text the show or leave us a voicemail at 571-293-6659. So less than ideal video accommodations for me this morning, Mr. Kerr, but I'm super excited to get on Halcyon, but I'm excited to catch up because I think we've got a couple of things that I definitely want to make sure we touch on. First off, I think the Bilt Rent Day promo was like off the hook good if you had elite status. I've received way more questions about my Nova Scotia vacation, so we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that. And then I won't say I lived vicariously through you, but knowing what plane you were flying to Europe and knowing the things that you complain about when you fly, I feel like I predicted just about every text message you sent me after you got on your Virgin flight.
Started within 5 seconds of sitting down.
I will say, like, the other thing that was humorous as well this past week, my wife flew down on her own to Orlando with my daughter, and my son and I came down a day early. And as she was going through the airport and experiencing United Airlines, it was funny for all of us that were following along, and everything that happened with her flight, the flight attendant not wanting to work the flight, and the quote unquote weather delay after a while, and the bag issues and all that stuff. It was all just like the vintage stuff that you and me and Mike and all those guys deal with on a week in, week out basis. So my wife is now indoctrinated into the world of being a road warrior on United.
Yeah, which speaking of, man, so I think this is last we discussed it, that the return flight from London looks like I'm going to be stuck in the United world for quite a while. So a lot to hit on today.
Well, yeah, we were last time we talked about it, you were gonna bail on United status, and then sharp left-hand turn.
This opportunity presented itself, and yeah. Anyways, we talk about it. So where do you want to drive this ship behind you? Where are you driving that thing today? Where are we starting?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's drive this Star Cruiser. So let's start with a quick listener question from the Slack community. Laura asked this question. This goes back to a flight that our buddy Julian and I were supposed to fly, I think last summer, maybe the summer before. I don't know. Anyway, her question was, would you spend 97,000 points for first class on Singapore going Frankfurt to JFK, now that it's the 777 without the suites on the route, or just book business class for 81,000 points? So difference of 16,000, and as she confirmed to your question in the community, the fuel surcharges or the carrier-imposed surcharges for both flights are the same. What say you, Mr. Kerr?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with business class on this one, even though it is a pretty insignificant jump up to first class, right? A couple of reasons for that. If we were in Singapore and you got the Singapore first ground experience in Singapore, then absolutely. But you're in Frankfurt, so you're probably, you're not getting the Lufthansa first class terminal, if memory serves correct. So the ground experience really isn't there. And second is, it just cannot compare to the new A380 suites. And I mean, first class is great, but business class on this plane is also awesome. And I just, I'm going to save those extra miles for the time I can get on the suite so I get the full ground experience when I have that much less work to do, because I think business on this flight, it's not too terribly long either, is the way that I would go. But that's me. What say you, man?
I think this is the most obvious answer you're going to hear from me on pretty much anything, which is I would just redeem the extra miles for first. I have not flown either of those Singapore products, so it'd be a new product for me either way. But it is a small difference. That being said, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of earning from travel. So I would say if Laura isn't fortunate enough to be deep on balances, 16K, and I won't segue us, but 16K, as we'll talk about a little bit later on with the Bilt transfer bonuses and stuff like that, can go a long way if you play your cards right. So I'm torn on
I think
this.
if I was in your situation, I would agree, but I can't just replenish 16,000 points that fast.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if you're on anything of a limited balance, then I probably lean towards business class. Certainly, if it was the other way around, JFK to Frankfurt, I would go business class because I'm just sleeping. The only reason why I'm thinking about first on this is because it's a daytime flight, and so you do get to enjoy the entire flight. So that's my 2 cents. I think it's a good question about the value of points and miles, and how you make those decisions. So
anything is better than row. I'm looking at the Singapore 777 seating map. Anything is better than row 62 on the 777. So you stay up there in business class.
So you got to try 2 products this week that I don't know if had you ever flown that Virgin product before, for starters?
No, I had only flown the new Virgin product, which we talked about, I think, a few months ago when I flew that. Yeah.
So you get the Tale of Two Cities. So you've got the Virgin product on the way over, and then this was your first Polaris flight, true Polaris flight.
Way behind the times in that, but it's because United miles aren't what they were, and flying out of Atlanta, United is never convenient. So you add in 3 more years of the pandemic, and I was way behind the curve on finally flying true Polaris. I'd had the soft product before on the old 8 across, but never the true Polaris.
Yeah. So let's start with the Virgin product, since we're going to dovetail that United flight into your decisions for next year. So.
Yeah. So I flew the A330-900 Neo out of Atlanta to London back in April. Amazing, fantastic. Cannot wait to fly it again. This time, 2 daily flights from Orlando to London. I was at the Disney last weekend with Summer and my family, and I had a great time and had to fly nonstop for business to London. So there's 2 daily flights. The first is an A330-300, old school. The next is the A350 with the new product on it. And man, I tried everything in the world for a month to get on that later flight. It never had an open seat. There's no such thing as same day change. So A330-300 it was. When I say Virgin has the best soft product I've ever experienced, at least going to Europe, still stands true on the A330-300. The service and flight crew on Virgin are wonderful. The bedding products, the food, I just cannot get over those salt and pepper shakers that are little airplanes. I think it's just those little touches are awesome. Full onboard bar on the A330-300 is bigger. It's like an actual legit bar with like a place.
No, it's a nice bar. It's a much nicer bar than the 787. It's more like just like a little table.
Yeah. But when I say that old A330-300 business class seat is the most uncomfortable, worst designed hard product I've ever flown, period, for business, that's just the way it is, man. So if you're not familiar with these are reverse herringbone seats that angle out from the wall. So even if you have a window seat, you can't really use it. And people who design airplane seats away from windows should not be in that business. It is so incredibly narrow, and there's absolutely nowhere to even set a drink. And you can't like have your TV out while you're having a meal. You've got like angles into the wall next to you. Like people watching on video, right? I'm not the smallest guy in the world by any means. I'm also just not the most ginormous. Like I'm a bigger dude. When I say like my shoulders didn't fit in the seat, like they didn't fit. Like I'm on the wall next to me, and I'm on the wall next to me. Flight attendant, I'll get on board, sit down. Like I look at the seat, and I'm like, there's no way. Like there's no way this thing is actually this small. I've been looking at pictures of this thing for well over a decade. Like I know what the product looks like, but until you're standing there looking at how narrow and small this seat is, you're like, what? Like then you get in the thing and just nothing about it makes sense is the short answer. And I'll sum it up by saying reposition, do whatever you have to do to get onto the new Virgin product. Don't fly this one. The second is the flight attendant welcomed me on board and handed me a ruby slipper, which is a cocktail that's like the Virgin signature. You got to try it. I'm like looking for a place to like sit it. Like there's nowhere in this. There's no like the tray tables like in the wall, and you obviously can't have that for takeoff and landing. There's no like ledges or anything. And I'm like looking at the flight attendant, and she could obviously tell. She's like, oh, you got to push this little thing that's in the wall next to you, and it comes down, and it's just a little bitty table to like hold a drink. But I push it and flip it down, and it like won't lower. It just hits my shoulder halfway down. Like it won't. It's like it literally, if you're watching the video, it comes flat and it goes down, and it's supposed to go like this, but my shoulder, so it just gets kind of stuck. And I'm like, just so uncomfortable. You lay it down, but it's one of those ones, again, if you've flown this product before, like you can't just like go down into lie flat mode. You have to get up because the whole back flips forward and the back of the seat becomes the bed. So you gotta like get up and down, and then the buttons are worn out. So when you push like recline, it doesn't work. And I asked the flight attendant, she's like, yeah, these buttons are getting worn out. And like, you got to really just find the right spot on the button and push as hard as you can. And then it'll finally like, anyways, man, like you guys, Virgin product, South product, amazing. Flight crew, amazing. Food, really good. Bar, awesome. All that kind of stuff, great. But the seat itself, do not fly the A330-300. Fly the A350, fly the A330neo. Reposition, just don't do it. And that's that.
Yeah, and before we transition to that Polaris seat real quick, I want to just, talk a little bit about the history of where this product came from. And I won't say like, that this is exactly the transformation that we've seen, but I think this jibes with where I've been flying a little bit longer than you. That's code for I'm older than you. And I remember, so like when I first started flying internationally, the best seats that you could get overseas were angled flat business class seats. On a business class product, there were first class products that were better, but those were not accessible to me when I first started flying. Business class was barely accessible, and so you would, how to describe it? You would, these seats were not, flat; they were angled, and so you would, you'd fall asleep and you'd sort of like slide down the seat over the course of whatever time, and you'd wake up and you'd shuffle back up the seat, and then you'd slide back down again.
I flew the old Delta Business Elite several times when I was in high school in the UK, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, like most of us have flown this, but like for me, that was the eventuality. Like that was what business class was, and it was like you celebrated that versus coach. This Virgin product, as I can recall from the timing, like this was the first attempt to go fully lie flat, but the airlines really had this concern about density. They had to get enough seats on the plane, and that was what Virgin accomplished here. That was this compromise of, we're going to give you a lie flat seat, but we still need to cram a lot of seats on this plane. And for Virgin specifically, since they really are a very London-centric, premium-heavy airline, like they really have to have that number of seats to yield out these flights. And now as they move to newer craft and the standard in the industry, which we'll talk about with your Polaris experience, is this more spacious environment, those seats that you flew feel like a dinosaur. And I flew that product, but on the 787, which is a slightly different product, last year. I still don't think it's a bad experience. To your point, I thought the soft product was good, and there were elements of the seat that I liked, but I'm narrower than you for sure. And so I think
by a factor of like 40%, I would call it.
Yeah. So I, for anybody who's broad-shouldered, for sure, this is going to be a tough seat to sit in. And I actually think that's one of the things for the folks that I know. I have a couple friends who are, 6'4", 6'5", 250, 300 pounds, like really broad, tall, heavy folks. And they find the Polaris seat to be maybe not spectacular, but much more comfortable for somebody who's not my size.
The Polaris seat?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 100% agree on that. For my return flight, first time there, 767-300, seat 1L, right up front on the right side. I mean, I was exhausted anyways, just because of 5 days at Disney, followed by 2 hours of sleep in the really rough Virgin, straight into meetings, dinner that night, event the next day, meetings the next day. And then I had 8 a.m. flight because we saw how much space was open on that 8 a.m. flight, and the plus points cleared 48 hours out. Thanks to Mr. Pizzarello here. So I did buy an economy ticket, and I bought that economy ticket because I had to get back from London, and it looks like with the price of that economy ticket, it was going to push me over the finish line for my United 1K challenge. Without that ticket, I wasn't going to make it. And I thought, well, since I got to go back from London anyways, let's put this economy ticket and use some plus points and hope for the best. That 8 a.m. flight is super open, so 5 a.m. wake up in London. I'm literally going on like a total of 10 or 12 hours of sleep over the course of 3 days, man. So I hit that Polaris seat, and like I could not, like the whole time I was in the airport. And I thought the United Lounge in London was very nice, full hot breakfast. It was lovely. I was pretty impressed. Way above the U.S. United Club product. So not a Polaris Lounge, just a United Club. The whole time I was just like, I cannot wait to get in the seat and fall asleep. When I like sat down on that Polaris seat and saw the space that it had, felt how comfortable it was, the soft product with the like gel memory foam pillow. Dude, I put my...
Oh, you got the memory foam pillows. Wow.
Yeah, I got the memory foam pillow.
That's not always on there.
Man, I I hit recline. Like we took off, I hit recline on that seat a little bit. I put the memory foam pillow up against the bulkhead and put my head on it. I didn't move for 4 hours, which is very rare for me on a plane. And then I like woke up, I like laid the seat all the way back down, and I was out for like another hour, man. That 8-hour flight went by real fast for me. And I just thought it was so comfortable. And some people have been like, well, yes, because you were just on this A330 product 2 days before, and now you're on this, and it's not. But I did put out a Twitter thread. It's interesting to see people go and read it. A lot of people agree it's incredibly comfortable. A lot of people are like, oh, this is better, whatever. Dude, it was really comfortable. That seat was fantastic. Plenty of room in the footwell, plenty of like, again, the storage issue everybody always talks about. I don't know what that's about, but there was a place to set my drink, unlike A330 on Virgin. The flight crew was very indifferent, exactly what I would expect from U.S. carriers. Not bad, not good. Everything was just a transaction, which is fine. Like, as long as it's not bad, I don't care. I'm just there to get from A to B and get some sleep. I had the burger. The burger was pretty good. Came with a salad and this light brownie. Again, perfectly fine for airplane food. Thought the burger was decent. Did not have the French fries, which I don't think I want to, based off of what everybody's saying domestically.
No, yeah, it's just not worth the risk. Yeah,
but I thought, man, for buying an economy ticket and using, I think it was 40 plus points.
It was 40 plus points, yeah,
to get up to that product, and it was great. Like I would 100% seek out flying Polaris across the Atlantic again. So I thought it was fantastic, and I was really impressed. And I think I would sleep really well going back to Europe on an overnight flight in that product. So looking forward to get the chance to try it again. Although, man, looking at what the United is charging for business class to Europe these days in miles or cash, ooh, it's going to be rough.
Yeah, and I think we were both pleased to see that the plus points upgrade cleared what 48 hours before your flight.
A couple days
before.
Yeah,
so not at 24. The cabin was pretty open for sure, and I think that's actually for me one of the best uses of plus points are those 3 cabin flights where they've got the true premium economy product on them. Mm-hmm. In that it's 40 plus points for the one-way upgrade to or from Europe, but if you only clear the upgrade to premium plus, then they refund 20 of the plus points. It's a 20-point upgrade. So I think it's a great value for plus points for sure, and they absolutely do clear at a really good clip for global services versus my clear rate is a 1K.
So I was checking that out a little bit. So 3 days before United flight, you can click the status tab and see the upgrade list. Yeah. And I mean, we picked this flight on purpose because there were like 30 empty seats when I booked it 2 weeks in advance. And it's the 8 a.m. flight, so it's a little early. But everybody on that upgrade list cleared. Everybody that was listed, it was like 12 people. All 12 people cleared into business.
Wow. And was the business class cabin full when you guys took off?
Yeah, when we took off, business class was full. So there must have been a bunch of non-revs or something or whatever, people listening on the space, but everybody cleared. So I've constantly heard about plus points not clearing, and I could see why domestically 100%. Can see why if you're taking the noon flight to Newark from London rather than the 8 a.m. to Dulles, like I can see. But from what I looked at and looking at the different flight, and I'm not booking way in advance by any means. I booked it was like 2 weeks before I found out this was going to happen, and like that's why last time we recorded I was going to say no, but now I did this.
Yeah.
Like it seems like if you play it right, you got a pretty decent shot to get clearance if you're flexible enough to play it right.
Well, it's a flexibility part. So I've helped out a couple of friends since becoming global services, and I've also spent more time looking at availability for some upcoming trips I have, and undoubtedly the loads into Newark are very different than Dulles, and so situationally, you're going to clear a lot if you're using an East Coast gateway, you're going to clear a lot more plus points upgrades out of Dulles than you are to Newark. I looked a little bit at Asia stuff. I didn't spend a bunch of time on it, but I think it's sort of a mixed bag for the Western hubs. There's also not a ton of Asian service right now as compared to where things used to be for United, so that could be part of it as well. But I think Dulles is still the sweet spot for plus points for sure for United Elites, and I cleared plus points for my upcoming flight to the Faroe Islands, which you might be coming on now. And that was, another, like I'm taking a daytime flight over to London, and that's another, I think, great use of plus points. So I love that daytime flight to London.
Yeah, I think that's all I was thinking about when I was so tired the next day in meetings. I was like, man, if I had been able to position from Orlando to Dulles to get that daytime flight so that you could just go a regular night's sleep before day meetings. Because I'm not going to lie, I had to go straight to work and get some things done in the Revivals Lounge, which, by the way, we hadn't talked about that. Virgin Revivals Lounge. Well, that alone, if you get A350 or A330 Nero, you fly the new product and you go to the Revivals Lounge, is awesome. Awesome shower, the best water pressure in Europe in this thing, a la carte breakfast, sit there and get some work done. They
it's
press your
clutch.
clothes while you take a shower. Like I had to go in the meetings with Virgin to launch Rent Day, and my jacket had been in my suitcase since we left for Disney. So my
Yeah.
jacket was a mess. So you put this in this like little reversible closet, and they press your jacket while you're taking a shower. Awesome. So good. So many good things about Virgin except that hard product. But if I'd been able to take that daytime flight and get like a full night's sleep and wake up ready to go for a day of meetings, man, that's clutch. So I got to look and see if there's a flight from Atlanta to Dulles that Lee gets there, because it leaves at what time does it leave Dulles? Like 8?
Yeah. Yeah, at 8 a.m.
So no way.
You'd have to fly in the night before. Yeah, and the great thing about with the time change is you land at 8 o'clock at night. By the time you get to your hotel, you eat some dinner and go to bed, and you wake up the next morning and you're on London time. So for me, it's the easiest transatlantic flight I've ever taken.
I actually don't know if Delta has a daytime departure, but you and I know even if they do, it's never going to be accessible in business class. So it's not even something that I would even look at.
I don't know if they have a daytime departure either. I do remember listening to our friends Seth and Stephen on Dots, Lines, and Destinations, and Delta's launching a daytime Charles de Gaulle flight out of JFK, if I remember correctly. So they do have daytime to Europe. I don't remember if they have a daytime Heathrow.
They don't. And looking at these, it says right now there's only 4 flights nonstop from Atlanta to London every day. This can't be right. What do I have filtered out here? There's got to be more flights. Delta's got to do at least 3 a day. No, man, it's saying only 4 flights. 2 Delta, 1 Virgin, 1 British Airways. That's it. Even British Airways had 2 at one point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and BA still has 2 into Dulles a day. So, loser.
Wow, yeah. And, yeah, of course, business class pretty much on all of these. Well, you can get Virgin. I don't know. Anyways, well, that's thing. Yeah, if I could take a daytime flight, 100% would do that, especially for that business role. Or even with kids, man. That would be so much easier with
kids. Kids, yeah, I haven't done it with my kids yet, but I'm looking forward to that where we don't have to have the recovery time when we get to Europe for sure. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about my Nova Scotia trip, and then we'll finish up with a Rent Day recap. And, like we talked about this very briefly a couple weeks ago. Nova Scotia is a place that I've been every year for the past 17 years, and then I grew up there, going there in the summer. I have family up there. So the questions that folks sort of framed up are all the ones that I would expect if people hadn't visited. First, the short summary, if you're not familiar, Nova Scotia is the easternmost province in Canada. It's further east than the eastern seaboard of the United States. So it's on Atlantic Standard Time. It's an hour earlier than us. And the 3 big things that people think about are the Bay of Fundy, Cape Breton, and then Prince Edward Island, or PEI. If you like seafood, you've eaten PEI mussels somewhere at some restaurants sometime. I think there's more to Nova Scotia than just those 3 things, but like we don't have. I don't want to do 30 minutes on Nova Scotia, even though I love it. So Cape Breton is probably the most beautiful part of Nova Scotia. It's a little hard to get to from a flight standpoint. So a lot of folks will fly into Halifax, and then it's, if I remember correctly, it's like a 5-ish hour drive, 4-hour drive to get to. There's a highway and a ferry boat and all that. So that's a more affordable way, because while there are flights out to an airport on Cape Breton, it can be pricey, and there are no nonstops that I'm aware of that are easy to get from the U.S. So you're connecting somewhere anyway, and you're likely paying a pretty penny for it. And for my money, like I think there's a lot of great things to see in the Halifax area. So flying into Halifax, which has become much more accessible, to get to Cape Breton, that's an easy get, if you will. So if you were planning a week trip, spend a couple days in Halifax, and then up to Cape Breton and back, I think that's very achievable. PEI, this is where Anne of Green Gables was written. If you've read that book, there is a house there that the book was based on, and it's a beautiful area for, ocean, seaside beach sort of stuff. It's not like warm weather. It doesn't get super, super hot up
Literally, if you're watching the video thing, I'm just pulled up Google Maps to orientate myself here on the geography.
Yeah.
It does not look like a place to like bring your swimsuit and sunscreen, but it looks like a cool place to like hike and stuff.
My dad likes to joke, but he's not wrong. They have 2 seasons in Nova Scotia. They have winter and they have the 4th of July. And so there is a small period of time, like 2 or 3 weeks, where it's truly hot enough for what we would enjoy for the beach, where it's in the 80s and stuff. But even on those days when it's in the 80s, it cools down into the like low 60s, high 50s at night. So the water never really gets warm, for sure. So unless you like cold water, swimming's not really a thing. There's sun, a lot of hiking. And there's a ferry boat and a road to PEI, so you can do the ferry boat, which is a great excursion. And then the Bay of Fundy, a couple of things here. First off, when people say Bay of Fundy, there's two ways to do this. There are a lot of cruises. There's a lot of great whale watching, especially in the fall. The fall cruises get incredible, leaf colors and all that because of the true change of seasons. So it's unbelievably beautiful in that area. But the Bay of Fundy, also the northern side of Nova Scotia there are some incredible hikes. One of the areas up there, Halls Harbor, is the most, the right way to say it. They have the biggest shift from high tide to low tide in the world there. The tide goes out in about 2 hours, and you'll see like there's this harbor where the boats are sitting there they're out on their lobster runs, and then 2 hours later, they're 40 feet down and just laying on the ground, and then they have to wait until the water comes back in. Cape Split is another area up there. It's an incredible hike, and it's really weird because there's like peninsula that juts out into the water that you can hike at. It's a 12-kilometer hike, so like a 8-mile hike for the full loop. We did this the last time we were up there, and the interesting thing is like where you park your car, the water's like maybe 10 or 15 feet to on the south side of where you're parking. The water's like 10 or 15 feet below your feet, and then you hike up a bit, like in terms of elevation, and then as you look out to the north, the water is 250, 300 feet below you. So these cliffs sort of like separate this like big elevation shift in the Bay of Fundy, which is sort of what leads to these, divergent tides. On the south side of Nova Scotia, if you want to stay on land, Lunenburg and the Ovens is another area where people camp and hike and explore. Lunenburg is a old historic town. They have historic tall ships that come in there for summer excursions and stuff like that. You can tour these old schooners and stuff like that, which our kids have had a ton of fun doing. The thing that's tough for all of this area is lodging. There are not a lot of chain hotels. There are a good handful of them in the Halifax area, both in downtown Halifax and then just outside. My personal opinion is there's no reason to stay in downtown Halifax. It's a good city. You should visit it for a day or two, but it's tough to get around and get out of the city. It's not a typical city like you and I think of, Richard, in that to get out to anything, you're going to have to cross a bridge and drive a bunch of residential rural roads. So it can add 30 to 45 minutes to any sort of a trip that you want to take on any given day in both directions. So I actually recommend that folks stay just outside of Halifax. Dartmouth is a great place to stay. There are chain hotels in Dartmouth, and you can do a bunch of day trips from Dartmouth. You can get all the way to Yarmouth. You can get to Halls Harbor, you can get to PAI and back, but the only thing you can't do a day trip from Dartmouth would be Cape Breton Island, which I would say you're better off doing an Airbnb or something of that nature. As I recall, I think there's a couple of Hilton properties out on the tip of Cape Breton, but we haven't stayed out that way in quite some time.
Just looking at Sydney on Cape Breton Island.
Yeah.
And there's a Hampton Inn and a Holiday Inn Express. So all you need.
Yeah, so that's like if you were to fly in, that's the area that you'd focus on. There's a bunch of cool stuff up there. I think those are the only chain hotels on Cape Breton. The rest of it is very rural. They have some awesome campgrounds that even have like cabins and yurts and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different lodging options there if you like hiking. But the reason to go is because you want to hike, you want to see whales, you want to see puffins, plenty of wildlife up through this area. It's absolutely a spring, summer, fall destination. Winters, while they don't get a ton of snow, the weather's just rough.
Feels like one of these places where the wind never stops below 30 miles an hour all winter, and you just freezing the whole time.
It's just very, like my cousin always says, like it's just very depressing with the weather in the winter. It's wet. It's not always a lot of snow. To your point, there's a decent amount of wind, and they're good at moving the snow and all that stuff and keeping the roads open and everything. But the tourism part of the province disappears in the winter. And the only other thing I'd mention, we mentioned it briefly a few weeks ago, but I'll just reiterate it for folks who are thinking about planning the trip. If you're going anywhere near Halifax, absolutely include Peggy's Cove in there as something to do. It is the most touristy of things to do, but it's absolutely beautiful. It's one of the old traditional lighthouses. A lot of fun to see. There's some rocks to climb on. It's very like if you can get a couple 100 feet away from where the tourist buses park, the rest of it is quite beautiful to walk around. And for the folks that wrote in, Jason and Sarah and Cheryl and Matt, all you guys, I promise I'll get email replies out to all you. We're bored in Star Cruiser, so I'm going to be going dark for the next 2 days. But I promise I'll get emails back to all you guys on specific questions. I just thought this would cover a lot of what you guys asked in terms of how to go about tackling a Nova Scotia trip. I think the last thing I'd say is 6 or 7 days to me is an ideal time to see, either Cape Breton and Nova Scotia proper or PEI and Nova Scotia proper. And my preference would be that you do Cape Breton and then you do like Bay of Fundy. PEI is fine, but Bay of Fundy and Cape Breton are my favorites.
So it's like a solid Mrs. Emily Kerr trip right here. I think
your wife would love it here. Oh my gosh, yeah. Based on everything I've ever had conversations with your wife, there's, these are simple, friendly people, decent, normal food. And I think probably the big thing to emphasize. I cannot talk today. Very
excited about Star Cruiser.
Yeah, unless you're staying in downtown Halifax, you won't see crowds. Like they're just, when we did the Cape Split Trail at the peak summer season, there were 4 cars in the parking lot, and we walked past all 4 groups on our hike. But it was just not crowded. And like the lookout that we were on, one group wandered under the lookout in the 20 minutes that we were there. So it's just a very different type of vacation from that standpoint. If you plan it right, like if you go to Anna Green Gables, yeah, there'll be crowds. The house is very popular. But short of that, I think that's one of the things that we love is that you can just sort of like, you don't have to plan dinners ahead of time. You don't have to plan tours ahead of time. You just go and have fun.
I'll have to check this out. I have to plan this for Mrs. Kerr.
All right. Last but not least, we've hit that point, Mr. Kerr, where you've said it would happen. And I believed you because, well, I'm a sucker.
Finally know what you're talking about for once. Not later.
But you said for a while that Bilt status was going to become valuable, and I believed you, and so I committed spend to the card. And full disclosure to everybody listening, I had 0 head start over anybody else in the blogging world on knowing that elite status would be more valuable in this specific way. It is likely passed us by the time the episode drops because I don't think we'll get it out early with Star Cruiser, but. Rent day, man, this Virgin promo, a 75% transfer bonus in and of itself would be really, really, really good value. Better than I think, and I don't want to say, like, I'm not a big always or never guy, but I don't think Chase Sapphire Preferred has ever had an Ultimate Reward 75% transfer bonus that I can remember. Do you?
No.
Yeah.
Not that I remember.
Yeah, not that I remember. But where this ramps up, and me as a Bilt Platinum member, and at time of recording, I still have not decided if I'm going to flush my balance over to Virgin, but a 250% transfer bonus. That means if you transferred 100,000 Bilt Rewards points, you'd end up with 250,000 Virgin Red points?
Yeah, so 150% transfer bonus, which equals 2.5x. So not 250%. That would
just insane.
I remember Chase does have a transfer bonus to IHG at 70%, which is the largest that they've ever done. So Not 75, not 100, but they do have right now. Actually, till tomorrow at time of recording, so this ends July 31st. So I think I had remembered something, so just wanted to clarify that to be fair to them. But yeah, look, man, this was a lot of fun. 75% if you're a blue member. If you're a silver, this is based on Bilt status, not Virgin status. A lot of people have written in and be like, how do I get Virgin status? I'm like, I don't know, and I don't care because it's not applicable here. But your Bilt status determines what percentage transfer bonus you have. Blue, that means you just sign up and you're a Bilt member, 75%. Silver is 100%. Gold is only 125%. And then platinum, top tier Bilt status, means you get a 150% transfer bonus on. This occurred on August 1st, probably the day before you're listening to this. And yeah, man, let's kind of 2 points I'll hit on here. People have always wondered, like, hey, you have an elite status program, but it's pretty weak. And I've been upfront and honest that I agree with you. But we wanted to wait until the member base was large enough and mature enough that elite status would like actually be applicable to people, right? So we publicly launched in March of 22. We beta launched in June of 21. So now 2 years into it, and we have a large enough and immature enough, meaning point balance wise, and people familiar enough and invest in the program that now is the time to finally pull the trigger on elite status.
Did you finally admit that I'm mature?
Well, we've already you're mature age wise, personality wise sometimes based on the boys group chat. No, have you seen those memes where it's like, if I die, please delete my group chats and erase my browser history? Please do that first. No, do that first. Or if I ever run for office. No. So that was the first thing. Like, we had to wait until this was going to be applicable to a member base. And we've reached that point now, which is awesome from a business standpoint for a lot of reasons. The second is, it's really funny. The conversations we've had about how to go about this have started with what everybody else does. And then we look at each other in the room and we go, we don't ever do what anybody else does. It's like, why are we thinking this way? Let's not think this way. Let's think differently here. Because there's a reason that elite status, some people think it means less and less these days. And overall, our founder believes, and I agree with him to a point that is applicable to the vast majority of Americans and for our member base, is elite status benefits for a lot of hotels and airlines are not guaranteed, right? And this is like the number one argument that comes to my mind is late checkout for hotels. Like with Hyatt, it's guaranteed, but not at resort properties. With Hilton, it's not guaranteed at all. It's based on availability. Like you present these things to your elite members, and then even then, it's kind of like a lottery, whether you're actually going to get upgrades, complete lottery. Good customer service, complete lottery. Late checkout, could be a lottery, depends on who's at the front desk that day. So why would we try and come up with a list of elite benefits that we cannot guarantee our members? Or if we can 100% guarantee our members, you will get this, it's probably not going to be that exciting, because then it's not really that exclusive, and then it's really not that valuable, or it's just going to cost us so much money that it's a losing proposition. And we're here to make money, right? We are. We're here to give people what they need, but we also need to be a profitable business in order to keep doing that. So we said, what if we make elite status more experiential? And we come up with cool things like this rent day, where 100% of our platinum members can get 150% transfer bonus. 100% of our silver members can get a 100% transfer bonus. And that way, it's number one, a bit of excitement, a bit of FOMO. Like I hope people who don't have Bilt status, and reading the comments since we announced this the last few days, there's a lot of people going, oh man, like, how do I get status the next 5 days? Like how I'm like, hey, that's the first sign of irrational behavior that people are going to take in order to get my elite status program, which is like, it's fun, right? But that's the way that we're going about it, right? So point number one is we got a large enough, mature enough base that now is the time to activate an elite status program. And number two is we're not going to do it like everybody else, because number one, we don't do things like everybody else. But number two, this makes sense to us. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. We're just going to surprise and delight, right? But 100% of our elite members are going to get value, and it's going to be awesome value, like we've set the bar here, with up to 150% transfer bonus. And in myself, I'm speculatively looking at my Bilt balance, and I'm like, all right, how many of these am I going to, 2.5x? Because I do have platinum status. And no, I'm not gifted. Our Bilt employees are not gifted Bilt status. You have to earn the points. So I have earned the points myself, and I do have platinum status.
And you are Bilt Platinum. I like it. Welcome to the club.
I am. And like, that's also in the back of my mind. I'm like, all right, what am I designing for myself that I would get excited about as a Bilt Platinum member? And I'm excited about 150% transfer. So yeah, I don't know how many miles I'm going to speculatively move over. I'm definitely going to move some. I fly the family Atlanta to Orlando for 7,500 Virgin points on Delta twice a year. So like, I'm going to eat those points up. So yeah, man, it's cool. And yeah, the last thing I'll leave is like, I would expect us to do more things like this. And I really hope people want to earn Bilt status after seeing what we're doing.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to use the example that I used. I wrote this story actually before I knew about the promo. There was, I think it was Frequent Miler that initially saw this. There were really cheap award flights to Italy through ITA Airways. And I'm not saying ITA is good or bad. I mean, they're the next incarnation of Alitalia, but it's a business class seat to Europe. And, I wrote about this just a couple days before you sent the rent day stuff out. And based on those flights, you could find like 75,000 point Virgin point flights on ITA. You could also find 48,500 point flights on Virgin to Rome from the US. Now, the Virgin ones have fuel surcharges, if you don't know that. And so the partner variation is a better option to use your Virgin points on. But when we think about this transfer bonus specifically, and we take that 75,000 mile or point flight on ITA to Rome, if we use the 150% transfer bonus, that means I can take 30,000 Bilt Rewards points and turn it into a one-way business class ticket. And to me, that is unbelievable. And that ticket has very little in the way of fuel surcharges, by the way, on ITA. That's the sort of value that I continue to look for. I look for outside value. I want to play for those big wins. And that's why I think this challenge just was like, this was a big wow moment for me. I just wish I had a bigger balance so I could secure enough Virgin points to fly the whole family somewhere, which I don't right now, which is your fault for spacing these too close together because I cleared out my account for the Hawaiian and the Air France 100% transfer bonuses. So I blame you.
Yeah, there's some good Reddit threads where people are like, oh, do I speculatively transfer? Or do I wait and like, what are they going to do next month or the month after that? And I'm going to wish, so it's fun, right? And, unfortunately I can't tell you, but yeah. So the other thing I like about this program, and one of the reasons that I targeted Virgin for this, and shout out to the people at Virgin Red US. Don't forget about the other redemptions, the Virgin Limited Edition, the Sir Richard Branson hotels that you thought were out of reach. Cruises, if again, can't guarantee cruise availability. I don't know when they're going to come or go. So that's just something you got to remember as well. There's a lot of stuff going on. Virgin Red US about to do their hard launch here in the US. Or the folks at Virgin London was just with them, obviously in person. Big shout out to them for coming out on a limb with us on this, right? And just behind the scenes a little bit is when you go to these big companies, these established loyalty programs, airlines and hotels, and you're asking them to go out on a ledge with you, right? It's traditionally not in the corporate culture of established businesses like this to do that. So it takes some convincing. And I'm really excited and appreciative of the folks at Virgin Red who in turn go internally and fight the fight for on Bilt's behalf to say, we want to do something new and we're willing to go and push for that internally and get people excited about this. And they have partnerships with every major bank in the US, and we know those people are going to pay attention and they know they're going to pay attention. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes here that make these things come to reality and have to go exactly right before we can hit that launch button in the Bilt app. And again, one of the reasons it's just the coolest job in the world for me right now. So big thanks to those people. But one of the reasons I target them is you can fly to London for 10,000 Virgin points. So even if you're just a base Blue member, it's 6,000 Bilt points to fly to London. Now you do in economy, it's like $100 in surcharges or $120. 6,000 Bilt points, $120 to go fly to London. I can tell the vast majority of my members pay your rent for 2 or 3 months and $100, and I can get you to London, right? That's like the Bilt message. And that's why the Virgin program here makes a whole lot of sense is you don't got to pay your rent for a year or 2 years to get real value, 2 or 3 months, and you can fly to London. Like that's just a cool story to tell. And a reason I like Virgin for this launch promo.
Yeah, and the last thing I'd say on this, because you touched on speculatively, it's worth noting that Virgin points do not expire. So
that's why I'm happy to remove my personal Bilt points and take advantage and let them broil there for as long as I need to.
So if you don't have the perfect scenario, you still this still may be the thing to take advantage of. Well, things have been crazy for you on the road. What's the next week looking like?
And I always say like it's gonna chill a little bit, but no travel this week. I think I'm gonna catch a Braves game. We got a little birthday action on Tuesday, and then I'm sure I got a trip to New York coming up sometime in August. But besides that, it's calming down a little bit right now. A lot of work and a lot of hopping around to get this rent day out the door. So not too much in the future.
Nice.
For now.
Well, yeah, right. Well. I can't say things are gonna be quiet here. We are doing Star Cruiser, which I love. I am doing the car luggage swap when I get back. I have a business trip. I will land at Dulles. I will walk out to the parking garage with the family, grab a different suitcase out of my car, walk back into the airport, clear security. Got a short trip, then home for a whopping 36 hours, and then off to Billund, Denmark for Lego House. Again, your fault because of the 100% air transfer, France transfer bonus. So we'll have to figure out a recording schedule for next week as well. But lots of stuff on my radar, man.
I don't know how you do it, man. I am much, much, much younger than you, and I'm exhausted.
Both of those things are true, and I'm exhausted too. My tank is running full on empty. I don't know when it's going to get filled up again, but I know I owe folks lots of blog posts and Instagram stories and all that stuff. But for the next 2 days, I am going to go kick it on Star Cruiser. I think you had the best line yesterday. What was it? If you work during Star Cruiser, you hate oxygen. Was that what you said?
Yeah, Ed. Sometimes you got to reel Ed back in. He's talking about like trying to work or get the podcast out early, and I'm like, dude, if you do any work during Star Cruiser, like you just hate breathing.
Yep. So I'm gonna go kick it with the family for 2 days. We're gonna have an incredible experience, and we got lots more to travel for the summer. Lots more to report on. Can't wait to hear what comes next for my Bilt Platinum status. And we packed a whole lot into the episode. 50 minutes for our buddy Jeremiah to break down. So lots more to come. We've got a lot more to cover before the summer fully ends here in just a few weeks. But until we upload again, we've got miles to go.